Over the last 2 weeks, we've been thinking about some of the phrases that get used in talking about solution focus. As long as it takes and not one session more. That was the first that we thought about. And then aspiring to leave no footprints in the client's life. There was another. And today, we're thinking about this phrase that often gets used, that solution focus is simple but not easy. And what is it that we mean when we talk about simple but not easy? Let's start with simple first. Most approaches to doing therapy, I think, tend to start with a conceptualization of the problem. Why is it that problems happen? And having established why problems might happen, a theory of problem development or problem formation, then people can begin to think, so if that's why problems happen, what would we have to do to resolve those problems? And the theorization around problem formation can be highly complicated. Now, solution focus, of course, starts from somewhere else. It started from Steve DeShazer and his team observing successful work, looking at what works in sessions between therapists and clients. And if we think about observing what works, we can't see problem causation. All you can see is what the worker is actually doing. And this allows us to describe what the worker is doing and therefore could do in a very straightforward and simple way. Steve DeShazer, in Putting Difference to Work, actually on page 26, writes, "Therapy needs to be described in such a way that therapists understand what to do and how to do it." So what we have is a description of a way that we talk with people, very particularly a description of the descriptions that we're inviting clients into. Yeah, I think that's the way I'd want to put it. What we do in solution focus is invite the client to specify what their best hopes are. We then invite them to describe in detail the life that contains those best hopes, then what they're doing that fits with those best hopes, what they're already doing that fit with those best hopes happening, what the next tiny signs of movement in the direction of the best hopes might be, and subsequently, of course, what further signs there have been of life moving in the client's preferred direction. So all we're doing is inviting the client to process, to describe their life in particular ways. And that is simple. There really is no complexity to that. As we often say at Brief, we have trained 9 and 10-year-olds to do this. And somewhat gallingly, we find that 9 and 10-year-olds very often find the approach easier to learn than we do as adults. So the simple side is easy. As soon as you stop worrying about explaining problems, as soon as you take that out of the conversation, then actually what you're left with is simple. But not easy. Why is it that actually something that's simple is not easy? And I think there are at least 3 key factors that go into not easy. The first of those is that we need to reconceptualize the way that we ask questions. What many of us have been trained to do is to ask questions to find things out. We ask questions in order to hear the answer. And of course, in solution focus, we just aren't doing that. We're asking questions in such a way that the person that we're working with can hear their own answers. So when we're talking with people, we're not trying to figure them out. We're not trying to understand them. And look, this is a shift for many of us in the way that we work with people. And of course, when we're inviting clients, service users, people, to hear their own answers, then what we're doing is, if you like, privileging their voice. And if you like, putting aside our own thinking, putting aside our thoughts, putting aside our conceptualization of what may be going on. And that again, that's not easy for us to do. So there we are, there's two reasons. The first is that questions are different. We use questions differently. We have to learn to do that. That's not easy. And then we have to privilege the client's voice rather than our thinking about the client's voice. And that's not easy either. And I guess the third thing is that in solution focus, every answer that the client gives is by definition the right answer. Of course it is. It's the client's answer. How could it be anything other than right? And that means that in order to work with people, I need to develop a repertoire of questions that allows me to fit, to take account of, to build with anything that the client says. And developing a repertoire of questions that can take account of anything that the client says, that isn't easy either. That actually takes time, and it takes determination, and it takes commitment. So simple, without a doubt, and not easy. That's probably true too.